Please give an Aussie very warm welcome to Josh Reich.
That's the first time I've come out to Born in the USA. Thanks, Paige, for the intro. It's great to be here back at TechFest and to see how this event has evolved and grown over the last couple of years. So, as Paige said, I'm Josh Reich, co-founder and CEO of Simple. And I think the title of my talk today is Kegs and Culture and what the difference is between kegs and culture. Before I get into that, it's probably useful to understand a little bit about what Simple is and why culture is so relevant to what we're doing in banking. So Simple is a technology company that's changing how people bank and think about their money. And I founded Simple about 7 years ago, really in response to my frustration with the banking system here in America. I had a very adversarial relationship with my bank, and I realized that I wasn't the only one. And I thought that, along with my co-founders, that we could use technology to solve a lot of problems. Firstly, we could use technology to deliver the banking service and get rid of branches and a lot of the fees and the expenses associated with banking. And if we could have a low-cost infrastructure, we could obviate the fees that preyed on consumers. But more importantly, we recognized how people's relationship with technology was changing, and we saw a huge opportunity to connect people in a more real-time, more engaging, more emotional way with their money through technology. And we saw that if we could do that, we could give people a real sense of confidence with their money and turn people around financially. And that's what we're really trying to do with Simple. So what is Simple? Simple is basically an online bank. Our customers get the Simple card. They can use it at more free ATMs around the world than any other bank. You can use it wherever Visa works. You can put your paycheck in it, pay your bills, do all the sort of things you'd expect from an online banking account. But what we're really known for is our focus on user experience and a really well-designed product and a very thoughtful service that we provide. On the product side, this sort of shows a couple of our core features. The first thing you see here is something called Safe to Spend. Safe to Spend looks at all of your upcoming expenses and tells you what you really want to know, which is how much can I safely spend today without hurting myself tomorrow? And the way that it does that, it looks at your upcoming bill payments and sort of does the math that you should be doing in your head, but does it automatically. And it pairs really nicely with this second feature that we have called Goals, which is a really effortless tool for either budgeting or saving. So you could be at a store, you could see a jacket that you really like, you could open up your app and go, you know what, I can't afford that today because my safe to spend's a little low, so maybe I'll create a goal to buy that jacket in 3 months' time. And what Simple will do is every day we'll put a couple of dollars into your goal, allowing you to achieve it, which is a really cool thing. We couple great technology with great customer service. I see some of our CR people here, so awesome job. If I was to summarize how and what makes our customer service different, is that just as a company, we're really proud of the fact that we provide real human customer service. Not a lot of companies, particularly not a lot of banks, I think are really honestly proud of what they do. And the reason why we're proud is we believe not only is it great to connect people sort of technologically to their money, but we want to give that human connection when it's available. So if you want to call us up, you can give us a call, you can speak to our wonderful agents, they can help you through your problems, and they'll speak to you like a real person, which seems kind of weird compared to banking, but it just seems obvious that you should treat people like people. You can also chat to us electronically using the application and you can share messages back and forth, share transactions and get service in a way that works for you. So that's a little bit about Simple. Why is culture important? Well, the reason why culture is important comes down to two core hypotheses we have around our business. Every new company, every startup is really, it's an experiment. It's testing hypotheses. And at our core, we have this first hypothesis, which shouldn't be too surprising to people who look at Simple from the outside, which is that we believe that you can compete and win in banking with a differentiated focus on user experience. Most banks compete using what I call price mechanisms. They compete in marketing spend, they compete in interest rates, they compete in branch proximity. All of these things scale linearly with the number of customers that they have. We believe, however, that our strategic advantage comes from design and user experience. And if we can make a great user experience for 1,000 people, because it's delivered through technology, it doesn't cost us 10 times as much to deliver it to 10,000 people. And that gives us a massive advantage over the legacy banks. And so this is pretty obvious when you look at Simple from the outside that this is our strategy. But there's a corollary, a second hypothesis that comes from this that really speaks to culture and why it's important. And we believe that our culture is scalable. We believe that we'll be able to maintain innovation as we grow. And this is a huge challenge for all companies, but particularly a challenge in banking. And particularly a challenge for what we're trying to do with banking at Simple. Because we're delivering our experience through technology, we have to adopt the pace of change that technology has. In the 4 years since we've been launched, there's been countless numbers of new iPhone updates and Android versions, and the Apple Watch has come out. And our customers' expectations for how to interact with technology change really quickly. And that's known to all of us here. Like, that's not a controversial statement. But compared to banking, that's really weird, because banks tend to operate on these 10-year, 20-year technology cycles. I know of this multi-billion-dollar 10-year project going on in a large bank in America to make their mainframes even more mainframey, because that's what they're doing. That's not how we want to think about it. So we need to have a culture that supports and matches that pace of innovation in technology. So let's get on to kegs. Here we see Sarah, photo of our office, and we see some kegs. This blurry one is blurry because that's our beer keg, no beer during the day. That is being Portland, our stumped down cold brew keg. It is awesome. I probably should have had some this morning. Then I would be too crazy, but it's great. So we have kegs, we have ping pong tables, we have an open plan office. Does that mean that we have an edge when it comes to innovation? No. We get a lot of large company types who come to Simple to try and understand how is it that a company in a highly regulated space can be innovative. And they'll come in and they'll see the kegs, they'll see the ping pong table, they'll see the open plan office and go, okay, we'll just do that and we'll get innovation. And this is like this cargo cult mentality, which is that if you dress up in the accoutrements of being a startup, you'll suddenly become hip and cool. That's not how it works. We've thought a lot intentionally about how we want to build our culture and what we need to have our culture support when it comes to those two core hypotheses. And for Simple, it comes down to three things that are pretty special and I want to share with you. The first one is that we listen to customers. The second one is that we have an environment of a lot of freedom and high agency for our employees. And the third one is we have a really strong sense of shared purpose. So let me go through each of those. So listening to customers. A lot of companies say they want to listen to customers and then they'll go and outsource their customer service, treat it like a cost center, and have it form this isolated silo that never speaks to the organization. And you'll have this silo for customer service that never speaks to the product team never speaks to engineering, never speaks to marketing, you get these silos formed in the company. And the problem with that is you get all these sort of inefficiencies as you grow, but you also lose the voice of the customer. And if you want to maintain a pace of innovation, you have to be innovating for the right reasons. You have to be innovating for your customers. So how do you avoid that, and how do you let that voice of the customer ring through the company? This is how we do it at Simple. This is a photo of our org chart. Not a photo, it's a screenshot of sort of how our org chart actually looks in real life. Each circle here is one of our employees, and how we're connected is by conversations we have in GitHub. We, like a lot of engineering companies, use GitHub to manage our source code, but we also use it to manage new product ideas and have conversations about culture, and sort of all sort of conversations about the product and service and the culture happen in GitHub. And so people get connected when they speak to each other on GitHub. A couple of things to notice. It's a big mess, and that's awesome. You're not seeing that siloing effect that I'm worried about. The second thing that's cool is each of these colors represents the teams that the people are in. And the red circles are our customer service people. And you can see that throughout the entire organization, throughout the entire conversation. That to me tells me that we're not just delivering great service one-on-one to each individual customer, but the voice of that customer and those themes and those stories are being shared across the organization, and they're shaping how we think about building and improving our product and service. So that's listening to customers. There's a lot more there, but it's obviously a really important idea for Simple. The second one is having an environment with a lot of freedom and agency for our employees. A lot of companies say that they want to hire smart, talented, creative, passionate people, and we do that too. But a lot of companies will then hire these people, put them at a desk and say, go do this. We subscribe at Simple to this idea of servant leadership. And what servant leadership means for us is we think it's far more powerful for anyone in the company to be told, here's a problem we're trying to solve, how can you help us solve it? Rather than coming to an employee and saying, here's a solution for you to go and implement. And the reason why that's really important is you want people to have pride of ownership over their work. The more that you can get people involved from the ideation stage to implementation, the more themselves they'll bring into thinking of new solutions for how to solve our problems. A lot of companies face this issue whereby at scale, innovation slows down. We want scale, the number of people we employ, to be a multiplier for our ability to innovate. And the way to do that is to encourage people to bring their authentic selves to work and give them opportunities to shape the company, not only in their domain, but outside of their domain. So we have a lot of ideas like feature teams that I can maybe talk about in Q&A that help us do this. The last idea is having a very strong shared purpose. It's simple, we're very much a mission-driven company, and that does a lot to tie together our employee base. But we go beyond that. We set very clear goals as a company. For the last 3 or 4 years at the start of each year, we've said, here's what we'd like to achieve as a company. Here's 4 things that everyone in the company needs to know that we're going to do in 2015, 2016, and beyond. And having those clear goals is really important, because if you have an environment with high freedom and high agency, but no shared purpose and no clear goals, it becomes anarchy. So we want people to apply their creativity and drive us towards a common direction. So clear goals help with that. We also have a very strong value system. It's simple. Here are our values on the screen now. A lot of companies talk about having their values and they'll stick them up on the wall, they'll have stickers on their laptops, and that's pretty much as far as it goes. That's not enough. You really need to think about what your values are, how they're unique to your company, how they give you an advantage, but also how do you integrate them into what it means to be an employee of that company. So how do you integrate your values into your hiring process, into your performance feedback processes? How do you integrate it into how you congratulate and reward people across the company? I could talk for hours on that, but it's a really important piece. Another thing that's important to us is we have this culture that's pretty transparent. I'm having a board meeting tomorrow morning. We'll share those full board slides out with the company a couple of days later, because that's what we do. We have company all-hands meetings every Friday, where not only do we sort of celebrate our successes and our wins, but we speak openly and honestly about our failures. We have a really strong culture of blame-free learning when it comes to failure. We acknowledge that failures happen. We'll do a post-mortem process, and we'll see how can we learn and how can we get better, and how can we do that in a way that encourages people to grow positively at the company. So these are the sort of 3 key principles for culture. It's simple and it's working, which is really cool news. Just last month, and we were doing this as well last year, there's a really interesting stat about how we've been growing. So last month, if we were a traditional bank, we would have needed around 900 branches to add as many customers as we added in 1 month. Those branches would have employed 6,000 odd people and have a payroll, you can all read. We do that with like less than 300 people here in Portland, Oregon. We're supremely efficient because we have a culture where people are highly engaged to do their best work to drive our mission forward. One other thing that I want to touch on that sort of Paige talked about in the intro is the fact that we're here in Portland. So we are very much a Portland-based company, but it wasn't always that way. We started the business 7 years ago in New York, and you'd think starting a financial services company in New York makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of big financial services companies in New York, yet we moved over to Portland. The reason why we moved here was probably 2 big reasons. One is we had some folks at that time who were working in California, and as you read in the Willamette Week every week, Californians love Portland. And so they moved up for all the reasons you hear about. They moved up for lifestyle, cost of living, all of those things. But the other reason why we moved here is that we didn't want to become a New York financial services company. Even at a really early stage, we knew that we were a mission-driven business that had a really strong culture. One of our values is craft. And when you think of Portland, you think of craft. You think of people who have really strong intentions, really passionate, and really positively minded as to the role they play in society. And you don't feel that in New York. As much as I love New York, it's just not the right city for our business. So we made the big decision a couple of years ago to move everyone over here and really build our base in Portland and grow here. A lot of people were skeptical that we'd be able to do it. We had venture capitalists from New York and San Francisco. We've been able to hire a phenomenal team, grow now, and we see Portland being a great base for us to continue our growth over the next couple of years. So I'm Josh, I'm from Simple. I've got a bunch of time for questions. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but I think Asia is going to come out and join us.
Is this on? Excellent. Thank you, Josh, so much. That was fascinating. So we'll do some Q&A now and get this started. Good to see everybody. So my name is Asia, and I am CEO and co-founder at a much smaller tech startup here in Portland. It's called Civil.
It sounds like Simple, though.
It does sound like Simple. I know it's been very confusing. But we do comments, which is very different. But this is fascinating. This is very personal for me at this stage of our company. And one of the things I've been thinking about is, for those of us who've mostly experienced culture from the employee perspective, I think it's easy to miss how intentional it really is. And it's great to, hear more about how these things come to be. And I was curious actually, especially as you talk about sort of the difference in your culture between Simple and a larger, more traditional bank. Simple was just acquired by I think it was BBVA.
Yep.
And so how and it's a much larger company. How's that process sort of been?
It's actually been really good. So we were acquired by BBVA a little over 2 years ago. No one even knows how many people work there. I think it's around 150,000 employees. They're that large that I hear a number plus or minus 10%, depending on who I'm asking. And so how do you run a culture like ours inside BBVA, I think is the core of the question. And that was actually really intentional. Those two hypotheses that you saw on the screen, we actually came up with those as part of the M&A process. When we were speaking to the people who were looking at acquiring us, we said, look, these are the guardrails we want to maintain. And we want to compete on user experience. That's what you know us for, but we believe our culture is critical to us doing that. And so they threw out a lot of the typical rules for acquisition to make this happen, and they're learning that it's a model for acquiring technology companies. And some of those rules are, I'm not the executive vice president for digital channels for North America. I don't want a big fancy business card that says that. I want to be the CEO of Simple. We're not Simple by BBVA. We are Simple. We're maintaining our own brand. Rather than reporting into a line manager, I sit on our board of directors. We have an independent chairman on the board of directors, and that means the governance model is the same, the brand is the same, and those things help sort of underpin the culture so that we can be, every step show, hey, these are the hypotheses we have. If there's a threat to changing how we operate, we can push back because we know it's a fundamental part of what we're doing.
That's really a testament to how strong the culture really is that you've built. So then, do you have any advice for somebody who's sort of at the stage that I'm at, or that I think probably many of us are at with a startup, where we're just getting started? We're very focused on product right now, on sales. Culture can really seem like an afterthought. Is there a point where it makes sense to get started with culture? Is there sort of a right time?
Yeah, I think there's sort of this myth that your culture is sort of formed by the first couple of hires that you make, and that certainly will get you through. But you do need to think about it. I remember when we were sort of 10 people, then 30 people, we went through these exercises where we tried to come up with our values, and then we realized we had real work to do. And I was speaking to the CEO of a company that's always been sort of pushing off that culture work. And then you start to see all these problems come up when it comes to not understanding why your employees are working there, why they're staying, what they're looking for. And you get this disconnect between what you're trying to achieve with your vision as the CEO and what your employees want. And if you're not aligned there, you'll get a lot of problems. You'll get very high turnover, and you just won't be efficacious as a business. So I think it's important to just take 2 days out of your schedule as a 10-person company, a 20-person company, and just collectively write down what's important. Why are you working at the business? You don't have to go through a formal exercise of coming up with your values and mission statement. Those things can come later. But just make sure that everyone is aligned as to what's important to them and what they want the company to achieve. And then you can build on that over time as the company grows and the culture grows. But the sooner you can do that, the sooner it becomes part of your DNA and it becomes easier to shape as you grow.
That's fantastic. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hey, my name's Aaron. I really liked your GitHub web. That was pretty cool. I thought it was a good visualization. So I work at a really large company, and what you say sounds good, and having kind of this matrix, or having a lot of people talk to pretty much everyone else. And that sounds great. But as you grow and grow and grow, how does that realistically stay sustainable? How does that not become overwhelming when you have 100,000, 2,000 people?
Yeah, really.
How do you maintain that?
And I wish I could tell you the answer with hindsight, because we're not at 1,000 people yet, but I spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I think there are some crutches that companies sort of lean on early in their life that make it easy to operate as a 100-person company that don't scale. For example, a lot of companies have this sort of ultra transparency on everything. And transparency is great, but you've got to understand what transparency is for. Transparency is, in my mind, a shortcut to building trust. If you can see what everyone else in your company is doing, you never have to worry about what's going on. And so the real question is, why do you need to rely on transparency as a 1,000-person company? Because if you are in that environment where you're forcing every employee to know what 999 other people are doing, no one's going to get any of that done. So how do you get to the core issue, which is trust? How do you build that trust when it comes to difficult conversations? We had a difficult conversation recently at Simple. I won't get into the details, but I think it was really important for us to acknowledge when we made a mistake and the steps that we were going to take to fix it. It's really easy to shy away from having difficult conversations as the company grows. If you can build an environment that has that trust, you don't need to rely on that communications overload. Another thing that's really relevant is we've made this shift just recently in our goals from sort of a milestones-based approach to an outcomes-based approach. And what that means is rather than saying, hey, we want to achieve these XYZ features over the next time period, here are the outcomes we want to drive for customers. And that means that we can still hit sort of our business objectives, but we give a lot of freedom to people across the organisation to make their decisions as to what the right milestone should be. So we have a principle at Simple that we want decisions to be made as close to the edge of the organisation as possible, whereas a lot of companies, as they grow, because they don't have that trust, they get decisions being centralised and everything just ossifies and slows down. So I don't know if those things will work, but that's the sort of stuff we're relying on to get us from 300 to 1,000 and beyond. Stephen.
Hey, Josh.
Hey.
Longtime customer. So as we heard in the news this week, the CEO of Intel came under a little bit of fire talking about how their work towards diversity has actually had some pushback from the culture inside that company. As one of the Tech Pledge companies, as you guys continue to grow, how do you continue to make the case, the business case for diversity? And you guys have been doing a good job of it as far as my understanding of what you guys do, big supporter of you guys. What's your take on diversity and how does it bake into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I gave a talk exactly on this topic last Friday's All Hands. And I spoke about this business case issue. So technology companies are spending a lot of time talking about diversity and inclusion. And you hear these business cases about how diversity will increase innovation by X%, as if you could measure innovation, or increase profitability by Y%. There are probably really good business cases for why diversity and inclusion is important, but it's not really relevant to Simple. The reason why we care about diversity and inclusion is really simple. Pardon the pun. It's just the right thing to do. And we have a mission, and you see it on the screen now. Our mission is to help our customers feel confident with money. We think that's a real positive force for good in society. And we, as I said in my talk, we can only achieve that mission if we have a good culture. And right now, it's become clear that there are a lot of forces that take people who don't have privilege and keep them out of the opportunities that are available in the technology sector. And we have to fix those problems if we want to do the right thing. And if we do the right thing, we have a good culture and we're able to achieve our mission. So that's why we're at Simple signed up for the pledge, and that's why we're sort of taking steps to improve the situation.
All right, I think we might have time for, do we have time for a short question? Okay, maybe one short question.
Good morning. Thanks for the presentation. I was wondering if we could explain a little bit more about what you're doing to support efficacy, or the last value. I'm not familiar with that one, and how you implement that, kind of how you get your result and how you support it.
Yeah, so I think the question was, how do we support efficacy as an organisation? And I think that comes back to the questions. I can't remember your name, sorry? That Aaron was asking. I think as a startup, as a small company, it's really easy to be efficacious, to use that word again, because everyone's hustling to get things done. The challenge is, how do you at scale maintain efficacy? And I think the way to do that is what I was saying in the talk. You push decision making out to the edges, the people who are closest to the information are empowered and have the freedom and the agency to make their decisions. And that way they have pride of ownership. So you can have these little startups operating across the organisation. I mentioned this idea called feature teams that we have at the company, where for any sort of feature that we're working on, whether it's a technology feature, a customer service feature, we haven't even had feature teams related to financial modelling or whatever. We have small groups of people across the company who work together to solve a particular problem. And so you have these mini startups that work and become sort of have that efficacy of a small startup operating in a large company. And so they have clear outcomes that we're looking for them to achieve, but they have a lot of agency to determine the best way to get there. And when you have small people who are closely connected to the problem, they can behave, I'm going to say the word again, super efficaciously. Thanks for the question.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Josh. Big round of applause. All right, we get shake your hand.
Thank you.